Hey everyone, how you doing? We are welcome to the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. We're gonna jump right into it today. Russ is gonna be joining us in a little bit, but from there we're going to get into we're gonna spend some time today on the most one-sided trades of all time, which a lot of people commented on yesterday. On
Speaking of the devil,
here is Russ now. Russ,
we're live, Russ.
Okay.
We were gonna just jump right in. I have to go right at 2 today, so
And Anthony joins us.
Anthony joins us as well. Perfect. So we're gonna discuss the all-time trades, the all-time most one-sided trades of all time today. We'll have some fun. And what I'm simulating over here in the background, you kind of see a little bit of it because I'm trying this out today. Is the all-time Montreal Canadiens versus the all-time Quebec Nordiques. So, and we'll go through if we have time, which we probably won't today, but we'll maybe do it tomorrow. Go through the all-time Nordiques because I think this is a game that when I asked what people wanted to see, they kind of wanted to see this one. So. This one right now is in the second period. It's only 1-0 in Montreal, which is kind of surprising, given that the all-time Nordiques didn't exist for that long in themselves.
Yeah, but they had some good players.
They did good players.
I mean, like I said, that team beat the Sabres a couple times in the early '80s, and they had a decent chunk of Hall of Fame players. So yeah,
they really did, and then in this game you have two players playing against each other. Who do we think they would be? Mike already knows, but Russ and the same player on both teams.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Guy Lafleur.
Yeah, Guy Lafleur. Oh, and who? Speaking of the devil, someone just tied it in this game. So
and in between whistles, he smokes a pack of cigarettes.
Right. So this was Peter Stastny there scoring.
I mean, the one thing I could tell you about Guy Lafleur, and I never covered him. Right, I wasn't lucky enough to cover him, but when I covered the Heritage Classic, I went out. There were very few people that went out and covered the practice. It was at this remote rink. We took a bus. I have no idea, even to this day, how I got there. And when the Montreal bus pulled in, Guy Lafleur got right off the bus and started smoking. This is before practice.
I see, Anthony. I love these stories because these were highly attuned athletes, and they're like in between periods. They're chain smoking. Because
imagine how more tuned they would have been.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, imagine how much better. I know exactly. All right, so let's start the show. Here we go. Ready, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, March 19th, the year of our Lord 2020.
I'm Michael Lagello, and there is no way in hell Zdeno Chara is an all-time Islander.
I'm Anthony Mazzoni from Center Ice Philly Magazine.
Russ Cohen from @Sportsology. If you want a signed copy of this, it's going to be out April 7th, but I've got some now.
Oh, hold on. Let's go to that. Let's bring you on here totally by yourself. I just told
you just
hold on one second.
Let's blank him off the screen completely.
All you have to do is DM me. Thank you.
Never mind. Do it right.
That's okay.
And I'm a contributor, by the way, of that book.
Russ.
Hi.
I'm a contributor.
Russ, here we go. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, forget it. You can see it.
I just flipped off everybody. That was kind
of for Flyers fans like Shane Gostisbehere and James Van Riemsdyk are in there.
What's the title of the book again, Russ?
It's called Sticks and Stones.
Got it.
On Amazon, but you could also get it from me too.
There's a good Bruce Hornsby song called Sticks and Stones.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, we'll talk more about it for sure. We'll have
we have plenty of time.
All right, so we're gonna do. So yesterday I put out there the most one-sided trades of all time, and boy, did people like it. It got crazy. It was one of those fun things, and this is the kind of stuff we're gonna do more of. My next one's gonna be your favorite goalie of all time. All right.
This is just
because part right here with Richard, but then we got some things in the. So Richard in our chat says Chara and Spezza for Yashin.
No, it was the number 2 or number 3 overall pick,
which turned out to be Alexei Yashin.
Which turned out to be Spezza.
Oh, it turned out to be Spezza. How did this trade work again?
Chara and the number 2 pick went to Ottawa for Yashin.
Pretty one-sided trade the way it all turns out, but obviously Spezza and Chara became the face of a franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, there's where you couldn't get more Ottawa Senators.
I mean, Yashin was a really good player, but he was overpaid where he was the first time, and then got really overpaid the second time. But he still was a really good player. It's just he could never hold it up.
I mean, Yashin was still a good player, so I don't consider that completely one-sided. One-sided to me is a deal where maybe players that were perceived to be equal at the time of the trade happened, and then one dropped off for injury or just dropped out. Like the Barry Peterson for Cam Neely deal
Right.
I've got a pretty one-sided deal here.
All right, let me go through the chat room, through our thing a little bit, and then we're going to get ours in for sure. But we're going to judge these as we go because I've got Hockey Buzz season tickets on the line here to the winners.
Okay.
So we're going to try to get the best ones we can get here. All right. So first of all, I just honorable mention to Ike Chiefs 9, who puts my wife to her new boyfriend for nothing in return. As the most one-sided trade of all time.
Wow.
Very nicely played. I apologize.
His divorce lawyer voted for that one.
Very sorry for your loss, but that is a funny one. Thanks for being able to. All right, then Edmonton lawyer says Taylor Hall for Larson and some magic beans he put. But yep, there you go. So
Larson's a good player.
Right.
Okay.
Larson's a good, solid,
And Taylor
top
Hall,
four defenseman. Larson again for the level of destruction that Edmonton got, from people for that, they still have their guy. He's at the end of the day. He hasn't bounced around like Hall has.
Well, here's an oldie, but a goodie from our friend Cameron Young. Scott Gomez for Ryan McDonough.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have one.
Bad one, but I have
a Philadelphia one for you.
Right, let's keep going. I'm going to keep going with some of my, and then we'll go back to us.
Okay.
And we'll go back to the chat room. But I do have some things on the, I want to. Otherwise, I would have to do this myself. So I thought if I did this with you guys, we could go through this, and I would have to.
Okay, go ahead.
You can help me make that way. I'm not playing favorites. All right. So then we have I'm that guy says Pat LaFontaine for a second round pick, which turned out to be Andrew Peters.
That was a concussed Pat LaFontaine.
That was a concussed LaFontaine. That's a fair point.
But it turned out to be a pretty good Pat LaFontaine at the end of the day.
Sure. But Mike does have a point.
That's like saying, and it's okay. It's a player. It's a player for a draft pick. It's like, okay, Lindy Ruff was traded from the Sabres to the New York Rangers for a 5th round pick, and the 5th round pick turned out to be Alexander McGillney. I mean, come on. I mean,
right. But that does at the end of the day, you have to look at that.
There's a lot of people that wish Lindy Ruff.
The 5th round pick gets a little bit tricky, right?
There's a lot of people that wish the Rangers would trade Lindy Ruff again.
All right, Hawk 35. This is a good one. The Phil Esposito trade to the Bruins. Okay, along with Ken Hodge for a pile of nothing, as he put it. He calls it the worst trade in NHL history.
No, it's not.
No way.
All right. How do we rank it though? It was top 10 worst.
Pitt Martin, Gilles Marat,
right,
and Jack Norris, and Gilles.
That was the Boston Chicago one, wasn't it?
Yeah, isn't that the one he's talking about?
No, he's talking about the Bruins Rangers trade.
Oh, the Bruins Ranger trade.
Yeah.
I think it was
very bad. I mean, Phil Esposito goes on to have like an absolute Hall of Fame.
I got to look that one up and see who was in there.
And Hodge is not a bad player either.
Well, right, but I think Rick Middleton went in that deal.
Yeah, Rick Middleton. Yeah, I think he did actually.
Yeah, so.
Well, we'll also look it up.
Just look for Hockey DB under Esposito. It should be there.
I got it. It's going to take a second.
I think it was Vadnais.
I got another one for you guys. Okay,
well,
so
Vadnais went with Esposito. He did.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we got someone wrote and this I don't remember this one really well, but the Pavel Demitra for Christer Olsen trade. So that's the trade that sends Pavel Demitra to Vancouver.
Blues.
No,
St. Louis.
Oh, yeah, it went to the Blues. Yeah, it was a Blues trade.
Or was he from the Blues? I was trying to remember which one it was.
To the Blues, yeah.
To the Blues.
Okay. That's not. I mean, it's not. It's obviously it's a good trade. It's not. It's definitely Pavel Demitra.
No, you know what, Mike? Middleton went for Ken Hodge. That was the part.
All right, so it was the same 2 teams, but it was a separate.
Same 2 teams, but
okay. So it was a little bit different. Okay. So how about this one? Okay.
All right. Here's the Espo one.
Go ahead. Give us the Espo.
Oh wait, nope. That's 2 Bruins. Sorry, I'm getting it. Keep going.
Fine. Okay. All right. Going on. This is George Williams to Detroit. Terry Harper, Dan Maloney, and a 1976 second round pick to Los Angeles. Who goes back in that trade? You guys know?
And Marcel Dion.
Marcel Dion, yes. So Marcel Dion and Bart Crashley, but maybe.
But I have to say Detroit ended up getting a lot for Dan Maloney. They got 2 first-round picks for Dan Maloney from the Leafs in like 77 or 78, something like that. So it ended up being not as bad as it was.
Yeah, hold on. See, this is the issue. Going from one show to the other right away. The Park and Rattel trade was for Espo, and so was Park and Rattel and Joe Zanussi for Espo and Vadnais.
Yeah,
that's not a one-sided deal.
Okay, this is
Rangers made it to the Stanley Cup with Espo and Vadnais.
All right, here's a classic. Ready for this? And so, what do we think about the Marcel Dion? I'm going to put that up as a considerable one. That's a significant one. I'm going to make that. So far, that to me is
a
good.
good one. That's a good one.
It's the best one we have so far in my mind. But we'll keep moving here. All right. So Wayne Gretzky, Mike Krusniewski, and Marty McSorley, of course, for Jimmy Carson. Martin Jelinas, 3 first-round picks, which turned into Miller, Rosinski, and
but there's a caveat to this one because Gretzky wanted to leave L.A. So
he pretty much announced.
One-sided wise. I mean, people forget Jimmy Carson was pretty good.
Carson was a good scorer.
Yeah,
and had a pretty good career in Edmonton. Even like he was.
Yeah. And then shit the bed when he. Oh, excuse me. When he went to Detroit.
Wow.
Well, no, he was terrible when he went to Detroit.
All right, this one I think is going to be one of our winners. And George Williams is the first person to mention it. So, George, I think you're going to win something here. If you're not a season ticket holder already, which you're not. All right, which I was pretty aware of that. You might want if you want it, George, you can have it. Okay, but here we go. This is the trade that I think most people are going to want to talk about. The Flames trading Dougie Gilmour, Rick Natras, Ken Vanderbilt, Jamie McCowan, right? McCowan.
Let me see if I can name him.
Go ahead.
Okay. Alexander Godiniuk.
Right.
By the way, it was what Walmsley was in that deal too.
Walmsley too, yeah. So I was getting
okay. Jeff Reese.
Yep.
Michelle Petit.
Yep.
Gary Lehman.
Yep.
And
this guy.
Craig Berube.
Craig Berube, yeah.
Two former Flyers in that trade, by the way.
Flyers in that trade, but there was like 10, 25 players in this trade.
And a couple of Flyers coaches. I mean, Reese is a pretty good coach.
Yeah, that's true, right? You got Reese as well.
It is a 10-player deal. At the end of the day, the Flames traded Doug Gilmour to the Leafs, basically. That's really what happened here.
Yeah. And we still thank Doug Risebrough for that deal. Thank you.
How does this rank, Mike?
It's probably the best deal the Leafs made in their history.
Is it one of the most? It's definitely one of the most one-sided trades.
I mean, Lehman did score 50 goals,
and the other thing is Michel Petit was a very good player.
And Gilmour was looking for a new contract, and they didn't want to pay him. So
McCowan's also a good player.
But the rest,
Rick Natras wasn't a bad player either.
He played less than a season.
Oh God, I forgot Natras, another Flyer. My God,
and Kent Vanderbilt.
Half the league is a former Flyer.
Kent Vanderbilt.
Kent
Vanderbilt. Oh my God.
Kent Vanderbilt is known widely for being the guy who got deked out of his jock by Gretzky in Game 7 in '93. So I wouldn't put him in any kind of.
I want to tell you what Vanderbilt's known widely for. Hitting on my wife when they both went to Cornell at the same time.
There you go.
My wife was at a party and got hit on by Kent Vanderbilt.
So he's a grade A prospect, right?
I mean, if you look at Petit's final numbers, like he had 90 goals and 328 points for a defenseman in that era, it's pretty good.
Michel Petit?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was like the Walt McKechnie of defensemen. He was like 8 teams, I think.
Yeah, but he was pretty. I mean, he would get you 30 points a year at most.
Yeah.
That's definitely up there, George. All right, I'm moving on to Ross 77, who puts in the Luongo and Jokinen trade, right? So Roberto Luongo and Ole Jokinen traded for
Oleg Kavasha and who?
Mark Parrish.
Mark Parrish. But Parrish was an all-star for the Islanders.
All right,
he was.
Luongo and Jokinen
went on to pretty great things.
Sure, no question. But Parrish was really good for the Islanders.
And what I like about Ross is Ross actually put in the quote from Milbury about this trade at the time. In the end, we thought the quality that DiPietro would bring. Oh, DiPietro was in this trade too. No, DiPietro was their goalie that was coming. Right. In the end, we thought the quality that DiPietro would bring us is just a notch above Luongo. If we're wrong, we may have made an unbelievable mistake. It'll be Bonehead City. It's my job. If we're not a better team immediately off with my head. I've been here 5 years and I'm tired of losing.
Milbury the prophet.
I'll say this though. DiPietro was a very good goalie, and actually injuries did kill him. Would he have been better than Luongo? No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, but he was an incredibly athletic goalie. Remember, he was.
I actually spoke to him at length at one of the All-Star games because he petitioned the league. He wanted to go out there and skate because he wanted to get out there and take a couple shifts and try and score a goal. And he probably was good enough to do it. That's how good a stick handler he was. But he was a really good goalie. It's just the injuries did him in, but he still was never going to be at Luongo's level. That's where Milbury really got that wrong.
Right.
Where
Right,
did
how about this one?
Providence or Boston?
I want to say Providence, but
I'll look it up.
Ross 77. The Timu Solani for Kilger and Tverdovsky trade.
Oh God.
I mean, that's a good trade, good one-sided trade. Tverdovsky was an okay player. That's it.
Yeah.
I think everybody had images of Sandis Ojulin dancing in their heads when they saw Tverdovsky.
Right.
Yes.
He just wasn't.
It was astonishing when you think about the fact that they traded Timu Solani.
Everybody gets traded, Eck.
Yeah, but he was there not very long and had you set records for gross most goals scored by a rookie. I mean,
we never know what the circumstances are. Maybe he wanted out. He's never talked about it.
Yeah, it was BU for DPM.
BU, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, a couple more here. Colorado trades Martin Rosinski, Kovalenko, and Jocelyn Thibault to Montreal for
Patrick Waugh
and Mike Keane. Mike Keane too. Like they got Mike Keane in that deal. It turned out to be
I always said Keane was an underrated part of that. It's always been an underrated part because he was a classic glue guy, especially with he pairing with Ricci on that third line.
Yeah,
they were tough to deal with.
Yeah, that was a tough part of that.
Well, I will tell you this.
You thank Mario Tremblay for that one.
When I was still in the working world, the Rangers signed Keane and Skrudlin one off season, and I was in a Hooters getting lunch, and Al Morgani was there, and I asked him about that signing, and he liked it, and I said, okay, if Al Morgani likes it, I like it.
Russ,
Al got that one wrong.
Russ, did you order the chicken breast at Hooters?
No, the chicken wings, Mike, but Al was eating wings too, and we started talking hockey. That's the way it worked.
Put a bing.
So someone says, I want to go throw Boston in under the bus twice here. Both the trading.
No, he only gets one entry.
Both the tradings of Joe Thornton and Tyler Seguin were unbelievably one-sided trades.
Okay,
well,
but you can't count.
Thornton was Marco Sturm and
right,
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Sturm, and there was another player in there. I have it here.
Mark Stewart.
Right.
It wasn't a useless trade for Boston. It's just the grade of the player that they gave up.
Right.
Not two useful parts, which is why I'm not as inclined to.
Yeah, Sturm was a 20-goal guy for a lot of years. Here's the problem. You can't count the Seguin because the owner wanted to get rid of him because of his nightlife. That had nothing to do with the talent. Anytime a team is forced to trade somebody overnight like that, the GM cannot get good value.
It was. I got the wrong Stewart. It was Brad Stewart. Who was a good defenseman for a while.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They were two useful parts for the Bruins.
Yeah, Marco Sturm and Wayne Primo, who was a minor leaguer at that.
Right.
Yeah, Wayne was no Keith. That's all I could say.
But I've heard the story enough times from talked about on different broadcasts that a lot of general managers. I think Brian Burke talked about this. A lot of general managers were really pissed off because the Bruins GM, I think, was it Mike O'Connell at the time? It was this.
Yeah, O'Connell.
Yeah. He only talked to Doug Wilson. He didn't talk to anybody else. He basically said, okay, I'm going to trade this guy as far away from the Bruins as I possibly can. And he didn't get full value because there was apparently like a Thornton for like Vinny Lecavalier type deal or some big like 1-for-1 that never happened. That was talked about the year before, and then that year when he was actually being shopped, he didn't talk to anybody other than the Sharks.
See, and this is why, like 40 years later, when I spoke to Emile Francis about the Park and Rattel trade, that I initially did not like Emile Francis for a very long time because of the trade. But when he explained the inner workings, like basically they walked in one day and said, you have to get rid of some of these guys and shake this team up completely. And I don't care how you do it kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's GMs are like put under the gun for that kind of thing. Considering he traded Park and Rattel, Espo and Vadnais was not a bad return because he had nowhere to turn. Like in those days, there weren't that many teams. They just told you to come in and shake up the team and get rid of some of these great players. He was forced to trade them. He even told the players, I don't want to trade you, but I have to.
And it's a similar instance with the Calgary-Toronto deal because Cliff Fletcher was the GM of the Flames 2 years before that. The deal was made in January of '92. He was the GM of the team when they won the Cup in '89, and I think after next year, he went to the Leafs. And Doug Risebrough was his assistant. So it was essentially they knew that they couldn't re-sign or didn't want to spend the money to re-sign Gilmore. So his value was diminished because they weren't going to pay him. So that was a contributing factor to that deal.
All right, one of my most famous things of all time, and you guys I'm sure have gone through this before, but it's really worth going through when you talk about this. It's 77 EMAX 77. I think it's going to have to win just because of this. This is just a great one to bring up. Is the Barry Peterson for Cam Neely and a first-round draft pick.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, that's up there, man.
Which is definitely up there, and because what you have to do, and he actually included the chart on here, which is a great thing. You guys, Jesus, what? Sorry.
Sound like you cashed out there.
That's all right. We're good. My clock fell off the wall. Sorry for taking the Lord's name in vain. Anyway, moving on. The Barry Peterson goes to the and then for Cam Neely in a first round draft pick. So the Bruins get the first round draft pick in Cam Neely. That first round draft pick though
turns out to be
Glenn Wesley.
Right.
Who was traded to Hartford. Okay, for 3 first round draft picks.
It actually I think it was a free agent signing.
No, it's here. It says Glenn Wesley traded to Hartford. 3. I don't know. Let's look that up. But 3 first round draft picks. Those first round draft picks, Boston ended up.
You're right.
Boston ends up getting out of those 3 first round draft picks Kyle McLaren, Sergei Samsonov, and Jonathan Otkin, right?
Well, they got 2 good players out of it. One great player.
Samsonov and McLaren were both very good. McLaren eventually
was good. Samsonov was great.
Okay.
McLaren's eventually traded to San Jose.
Wait, hold on. Samsonov was okay. That's it, Mike? Seriously?
Very good.
Yeah.
He was way above average. What are you talking about?
No, McLaren.
Oh, okay.
Samsonov was traded to Edmonton for Marty Reisner, a second-round pick, and Jan Stastny. Now, the second-round pick became
Patrice Bergeron.
Milan Lucic.
Okay.
That was good for a
for Martin Jones, Colin Miller, and Jacob.
Remember, Marty Reisner had the heated skates. He was testing them. I don't know if it was them, though.
Oh, that's right.
I thought that was
Harry. You had Kyle McLaren was traded to San Jose for Jeff Hackett and Jeff Gilson.
Okay.
Gilson was traded. Jeff Gilson was traded back to San Jose for Brad Boyes. Brad
Boyes could score for a year.
Dennis Wideman. And Dennis Wideman was traded to Florida for Nathan Horton and Gregory Campbell. So that's all the stuff that came from Barry Peterson. This is just a fun thing to follow. But
that's a fun thing, but it'll be
up there. This is the thing. Vancouver looked at Cam Neely after 3 seasons as a failed first round pick. He was a 9th overall pick.
Yeah.
In 3 seasons with Vancouver, he had 16, 21, and 14 goals.
Yeah.
So they trade him and a number 1 pick for Barry Peterson, who Barry Peterson was the Bruins' number 1 center, played with Middleton. He was really, really good. And after that deal, he did absolutely nothing in Vancouver. I don't know if it was injury or what, but for example, he had 71, he had 76, 116, 107 points with the Bruins. And after he had 2 decent seasons with Vancouver, 76 and 71 points, and then dropped off the planet.
Yeah.
I still have a trade that slams all of them.
All right, we're gonna get to our trades and the chat room's trades in a second. We have a couple more here. Chicago trades to the Flyers Matt Ellison in a 3rd round draft pick for
Patrick Sharp.
That was mine. That was the one I was going to do.
Here's a short one on this.
Crazy trade. Here's
a short one on this. So we all hated that trade.
Yeah, at the time.
I hated Sharp though, and we knew it. But I'll give you a Sharp story. When he was with the Phantoms in his last year with them, they had a thing. The first day was like a welcome to the Phantoms media day, right? Yeah. And I walk in there with my mic, and Patrick Sharp takes my mic and starts interviewing me. It's really funny. I don't even know if I have it somewhere. If I have it, I need to find it. But it was that's how much personality he had.
Super early tryout for his career.
Yeah,
it was really funny actually. Yeah.
I mean, he had his moment. He wasn't the only thing the Flyers knew he was good. No one knew he was going to be what he turned into.
No, but Hitchcock hated him.
Hitch hated him. And listen, I know he even in the minors, he would bump heads with the coaching staff, with the fans.
Yeah.
He had, Patrick, strong-willed guy. And they clashed at times.
Well, you know what it was too? I mean, Stevens was the coach, right, in the minors?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was very rigid, and Sharp was not a great defensive player.
But don't you think it's just beautiful people?
He had to develop it. Once he got to the
pros, used to getting what they want. I mean, isn't that what we're talking about here? Patrick Sharp is this great-looking guy, and great-looking guys are used to getting what they want all the time. So
I know. I mean, it's a burden. I know.
I know. Mike can tell us all about this.
I've been there.
Yeah, I can tell you. All right, Ron Francis, Ulf Samuelsson, and Grant Jennings to the Penguins.
John Cullen.
Yep.
And
one of the best names in all of hockey.
Was it Ozarly Zalapsky?
Ozarly Zalapsky, yep. And
was Rob Brown in that one?
And Jeff Parker.
Jeff Crash Parker. Oh God,
that's a good one. That's a contender.
Yeah, that's a contender. I mean, Ron Francis and Ulf Samuelsson were the missing pieces that brought the Stanley Cup to Pittsburgh. I mean, that was the Butch Goring trade for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like we talk about the Islanders one often. We're going to get a couple more in here, and then we're going to definitely get into this. Okay, I got the Trevor Linden trade tree is another really good one. If you guys want to get into that at some point, but I'm just going to move on. Then we're going to get to our group here. So let me go here. All right, from the Blue Jackets perspective, this is interesting. This is a good one. If Jeff Carter goes to Columbus for the Flyers get back in that trade.
Voracek.
That's right.
Voracek, Couturier, and Cousins.
Yep.
Okay, I can't give the guy the winner, though, because it wasn't like Carter wasn't talented. He just refused to play in the market.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not the GM's fault for making that trade. That's on Jeff
Well,
Carter.
it's also the assess. I would say at the same time, the GM does have to assess the player's interest in coming there.
Sure.
And if you make the assumption that he's going to, when I guess you're looking at saying eventually the player will come around to it. He knows he'll be a star player here.
Correct.
Carter just didn't want have any part of Columbus at the time. So that's the part that you can kind of put on the general. You can kind of sort of put on the general manager, and not. But again, from Philadelphia's perspective, I mean, they got 3 National Hockey League players and 2 top end players.
Yeah,
and the third that who was a decent depth player and still is in the NHL.
I actually think the deal that Carter was sent to LA was worse than the deal that sent him.
We're getting Jack Johnson. I mean, it was like basically LA unloading a headache with Johnson and acquiring again potentially another headache in Carter. Carter got there and he matured with a strong core.
I've said my favorite story about the Jeff Carter thing, but I'll say it really fast, and this always gets to me. I always remember because that year, though, Jeff Carter goes on to win the Stanley Cup, right, with the LA Kings,
right.
And I'm in the press conference with Pierre LeBrun right behind me, and Jeff Carter's up there being interviewed after he scores the overtime winner in Game 1, I think it was, and LeBron says, "Jeff, after all that you've been through this year, this must be very rewarding to me." And in my back of my head, I'm like thinking to myself, after all Jeff Carter has been through this year, this is the hockey. This is proof there are no hockey gods. I mean, this is like just to like take sympathy on Jeff Carter at that moment.
I know.
I love Pierre LeBrun, but I'm like, just having known what we knew in Philadelphia and having known what all the stuff that went on and then how he screwed Columbus, just like I just couldn't imagine.
Agent appreciated it.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah,
same.
I have no love for Jeff Carter. Next question.
Okay, yeah. All right, and finally, this is a really good one. We talked about this. I think we didn't break this one, but this was on this. I will always remember the HockeyBuzzcast with this trade because we were doing the trade deadline day. Philip Forsberg for Martin Erat and Michael Lotter.
Oh, that was when we were doing it at the house, Zach.
Yep.
With Julie and you and I and we were like looking at each other like, what the F?
That is the most crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
almost so close to a 2 expletive show there, Mike. Good job.
I was planning the abbreviation there. I don't want to.
The way MCM 322003 wrote this was Philip Forsberg for Martin Bleepen Erat and Michael Lotta.
Here's what I heard on the inside from this.
Yeah, go ahead.
It looked like a terrible trade, and we all were ready to rip George McPhee, no question about it. But I heard that Ovechkin went to McPhee and said, I can play with Erat, get him. That's what I heard. Whether that's true or not, I can't confirm.
That makes sense.
That was the thing. Forsberg was not a bust.
It had to be something like that.
He wasn't a bust, Mike, but this was the thing where they wanted to get to the Stanley Cup. You've got your star player potentially going into the GM's office and saying, go get this guy. I think it will work out for us. Sometimes a GM has to listen to his players.
Yeah.
Especially that kind of player.
Here's one more good recent one, and then we'll get on to some of ours here. Patrick Berglund, Vladdy Sobotka, Tage Thompson in a first-round pick.
No. Okay. You cannot put that one in because Ryan O'Reilly backstabbed the Sabres by saying they wanted out because they were a crap organization, and that took all the leverage.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, though, and I'll go off on this. If Terry Pagula would have said, I'll pay the bonus on Ryan O'Reilly's contract, which was $7 million on July 1, they would have gotten a lot more than 2 salary dumps and the 5th-rated prospect in the St. Louis Blues organization.
That's true.
They would have gotten, I don't know if they would have gotten Robert Thomas, but maybe they would have gotten Kyrou or Costin or somebody else.
Yeah.
Tage Thompson has been a disappointment. He had a dislocated shoulder this year. Who knows what he's going to be? Sobotka blew out his knee and had one of the worst seasons any professional last year. And Patrick Berglund dumped $12 million to go back to Sweden rather than playing in Buffalo. So
maybe Buffalo should have asked for Jordan Binnington. Just saying.
Well, no, I mean they had a backlog of goaltenders at the time.
Yeah,
they probably would have given him up. They had Husso. They had.
I know, and if they would have asked for him, I'm sure he would have been in the deal.
Yeah.
All right. One last one. This is also Buffalo related, but this is really a good one. Chicago gets Stefan Beauregard and a 4th-round pick for Dominic Hasek.
That was a 3-way deal, though.
All right, so let's be fair about this.
Christian Ruutu was part of the deal.
Might be one of the best goalies of all time.
There were teams that didn't know what to do with Hasek, though. Like, he was an offbeat personality. He didn't train the same as other guys. And if you remember, and I didn't even get to watch this Stanley Cup live.
I did.
They were calling him like goaltender Hasek. He had no personality. Like, it was one of those things where you had to find a place that he wasn't going to spiral out of control because he was nothing like anybody had ever seen in the NHL.
Nobody knew anything about him until that 3rd period in Game 4 of was it 91 or 90?
91, I think.
91 final when Chicago was down by 2 or 3 goals and basically had to play a 3-3 against the Penguins. And Hasek stopped Yager and Lemieux on breakaways, and he was unbelievable. And then they scored a goal, and it was over with. But that inspired John Muckler to take a stab on him because at that point, I can't even remember they had Grant Fuhrer. They traded a 1st-round pick and Dave Andrechuk for Grant and Darren Pupa for Grant Fuhrer.
And finally got a playoff series win. That was the first one in ages, right?
It's a shame nothing inspired John Muckler to be a good coach again for the Rangers. But anyhow,
move on. I know I said that was the last one, but this one is always kind of debated.
Come on, I want to get some of mine.
All right, then yours, I promise. But this one is always debated, and Anthony, Russ, and I will have fun talking about this one for a second. The Flyers pick up John LeClair and Eric Desjardins.
Yeah.
From Mark Recchi in a 1995 3rd-round pick.
Yeah. And Gilbert Dion, don't forget.
And Gilbert Dion, right? Gilbert Dion, yeah, Leclerc, Desjardins, and Dion. And honestly,
here are life.
I want to remember about this trade. I was at the game before this trade happened as a fan. Okay, and I was in the crowd, and at the time that this happened, but for that game before, they played the Florida Panthers, and they got killed, and they looked horrendous, and it was one of those games that you're just like, and this is in the Ed Snyder days where you knew that if a game like that happened, something like this was going to happen.
Everybody looked up at the owner's box.
We are not going to be the same team tomorrow. It was one of those moments. That's what was so awesome about covering the Ed Snyder Flyers. So it's like and I was just a kid at this time, but this trade happened, and literally Leclair and Desjardins just finally made Lindros make sense. It made Lindros work. I mean, Lindros was great before that with Recchi and Fedek and all this, but it finally now it really worked. And it was a gutsy trade because Mark Recchi was a heck of a player.
He's a great player.
Set records for Flyers all-time scoring, but the
They
Desjardins
didn't have everybody forgets that deal. For everybody focuses in on John LeClaire, and rightfully so. The Flyers defense was just awful, and Eric Desjardins brought immediate stability to that blue line.
Yeah,
and provided them with a number one defenseman, who was just, and we all saw throughout his career just how, and I think a lot of people had enough appreciation for Eric Desjardins until after his career was done.
Yeah.
In this town, and he really stabilized that blue line.
He did, and what made this trade even more satisfying is the Flyers went on to destroy the Canadians every time they played them.
Yeah,
for the next 5 years.
7-4, 7-2. I mean, it was just like LeClaire made it his mission to obliterate that team every time.
I mean, LeClaire just took the Canadians apart game after game after game. And so that just made the Canadians more and more frustrated with this deal. It was just one of those things. I mean, remember, LeClaire had a really successful time in Montreal. Like he wins the Stanley Cup, and he sets a record, I think, for the most overtime goals.
But they were playing him at center a lot. He played at center because they needed size down the middle. And then Philadelphia says, when they make the trade, nope, we're putting you on the port side of Eric Lindros, and we're going to see how the two you guys play off each other. And I remember asking Eric at his when they retired his number here in Philadelphia, I said, did you kind of know from the first practice that you and John kind of were going? And he said, you never know 100%, but we kind of got a good. There was definitely a feel even in practice that he kind of knows where to go, and it kind of worked. And once we were in game time, we knew it at that point how well we were clicking.
Now talk about life's little cruelties. Just as a sidelight to this deal, because you mentioned Gilbert Dion.
Yeah,
Gilbert Dion is the extremely younger brother of Marcel Dion, and Marcel Dion had a Hall of Fame career, scored a ton of goals, a top 10 in career points, and never won a Stanley Cup.
Hey, he's one of the great players to never win a cup.
And his little brother, Gilbert, who did not have much of a career, wins the cup with Montreal in
93.
Yep.
What happens?
That's what happens, right? And
I know some people are whispering kind of because Gilbert was, fast skating, kind of a slick playing forward, not really good defensively. But a lot of people, I still remember when that trade went down. Everybody's like, Dion might be and he didn't.
Yeah,
really
I mean, Marcel Dion was just super talented.
He was really that was but that trade was a phenomenal time. That was a crazy turnaround. So I mean, it's hard to call it one sided because it's still Mark Recchi,
that's why I don't think.
But as far as fun trades in the NHL and consequential trades, there aren't many trades that have had more consequences than that trade.
I mean, one sided is Marcus Naslund for Alex Stoyanov.
Okay, let's start, Mike. Go ahead. So let's now move into ours if we don't have any others. Okay, so that's now Marcus Naslund for Alex Stoyanov. That's a
good one.
That's a good one. I would definitely say that
No, you only get one. Hold on. You got to go around the horn to get another one.
No, I got plenty. Go ahead.
You might mention somebody else's.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
All
Brad.
right. So I believe I heard this one break on WFAN and was completely in shock. So we've got Messier and Boom to the Oilers for Stephen Rice, Louis DeBrusque, and Bernie Nichols. But Bernie Nichols only scored 28 goals in the 2 seasons he was there.
Right. In 2 seasons.
Yeah. He had 40 and 50. Actually, he had 60 goals, I think, one year when he was at his height.
This was a bigger cash dump than Gretzky even for them. Like
this was. I mean, think about this. The Rangers don't win the cup without this trade.
Oh yeah, no, the Rangers don't win.
I had to rehear it. I couldn't believe my ears that this trade actually happened. And I'll look up Stephen Rice. I don't believe he ever played in the NHL. I'm not sure how far
he played. I think he played for Edmonton.
Did he?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. That's an amazing. I mean, that trade. I remember when that happened too. And
Stephen Rice did play 300 games, but for Edmonton he played about 100 games.
Everybody looked at Bernie Nichols at that ridiculous 150 point season he had in 89 because he was playing with Gretzky. That's
right.
Why.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He had 60 goals, Mike. Did he?
He had 70 goals that year.
70. I underrated
that was later, but that's later, and everything like that. All right, so let's move on to all right, so what do you got, Anthony?
I mean, one was already taken from earlier, but I'm not going to mention it. Obviously, the Sharp for Ellison deal. It was just so incredible. I still remember my reaction to the deal. Going, and what else?
Right.
What else? That's it.
Yep.
Bobby, whoa.
That was hits. That
to me was still one of those deals where I said this one's going to come back to bite, and it did. It absolutely did.
Yeah.
To me, that's the one that kind of really, in more recent years, it really kind of sticks out, and I get it.
I know in front of Hitch when he said it. I think we were at Hitch. I think it was like after a practice, or it was after. It was something
practice
where Hitchcock was talking about this. I remember it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I knew that Stephen Rice played with Edmonton. He also played 3 seasons with Hartford.
And I don't remember him at all.
Yeah, and
I remember him as a Stratomac player actually in Hartford.
The other I would say, and I was a proposal.
Wait a second. Wait.
Go ahead.
No. Anthony's got that. That was already mentioned. He's a guest here, Mike. Come on, he's a guest. What's the next one you got?
The other one was, I mean, we often talk about the Williams for Markov trade. Now, I will say, Philadelphia was leaking oil defensively. They needed a defenseman back there, for that 04 team. But obviously, you can't completely dodge the fact of what Justin Williams has done with his career long term. He did. Again, it was the cost of doing business basically to improve Hitch's team back then, especially having a defenseman back there. And most people obviously forget, Danny Markov scored the goal that slayed the Devils for the first time. And everybody forgets that. I was there covering that game, and most people in the arena wouldn't have been complaining about that trade at that time. But in looking at the grand scheme of the total careers in this case, Williams obviously has been of great benefit. Was a great benefit, obviously, to Carolina for their cup, for the Kings. Yeah. It's a tough one not to overlook.
Yeah. Along those lines, and then I'll go back to Mike quickly. Along those lines, I want to throw in the Brindamore for Keith Primo trade, which was like, it's a tough. It's sort of not just.
Primo was a good player.
Primo was a player, but and it was and a lot of people, the rumor about that was that Brindamore was still kind of pissed off about the fact that he was rumored to be involved in the Lindros trade that didn't happen. And that Brindamore, that there was something, I think that never really quite settled, but Brindamore still was like one of these Flyers that just, gave it all and goes on and went, and Primo has a good couple years in Philly for sure.
There was a quote that came out of that trade though, or later. It was either out of that trade or later. Bob Clark said it about Brindamore. I don't think he'll ever be a Selke nominated kind of player.
Right.
And Brindamore indeed was and won it.
And raised the Stanley Cup above his head and all that. Mike, what do you have?
Okay. Among the plethora of Leaf deals, that you put, and I believe me, I'm probably going to be revisiting the worst trades and best trades of all time when it comes to the Leafs. I would have to say that the worst one, or one of the worst ones, was the 1-for-1 Russ Courtnall for John Kordic. And the reason this was made was because John Brophy was essentially did not want Wendell Clark to have to fight the heavyweights like he was doing early in his career, and he put a big emphasis on enforcers. And Kordic ran wild through the league. He was one of the bigger, tougher guys, but everybody knew he was a loose cannon.
Yeah,
and Russ Courtnall was arguably the Leafs' number 1 or number 2 center, and they traded him for Kordic, and Kordic was a train wreck in Toronto in a bad way.
That's a good.
I do have a Toronto. We want to welcome Jan, right? Hey Jan.
Hey Jan. Hey,
sorry.
I do have our worst trades.
I do have a Toronto trade, and then anybody else could go again. Mike will enjoy this one. Let's go back to Cliff Fletcher trading a first-round pick in the 1991 draft for Tom Kurvers.
It wasn't Cliff Fletcher.
It's
not Cliff Fletcher. It was
John Ferguson, right?
It was Floyd Smith.
Okay, well, Floyd Smith did it, and then that turned into Scott Niedermayer.
Yes, well, I didn't put that one because it was trading for a draft pick. You didn't know what. But hold on, they did know
that Tom Curvers was just like an okay player coming off a career year. They did know that.
Well, yeah, he actually had a career year. The year that he was with the Leafs. He had, I think, 50 or.
There is only one trade that the Leafs can point to destroying basically everything up till now.
Oh, we know that one. I know that one.
The Kessel deal, but I mean,
no, not the Kessel trade, not that one. That's not the one. There's one trade.
Andrew Raycroft
for Tuukka Rask.
Yeah,
Rask
I can tell you
is a Leaf.
I had just covered the World Juniors, right? And I covered Rask in that World Juniors in Vancouver. I was there for the whole 2 weeks. And I could tell Rask was just tremendous. He wins best goalie. I remember coming back to the States thinking, wow, the Leafs are really set here. They've got a goalie for a long time. Like they finally have a franchise goalie. And when he got traded, I couldn't believe my ears because it was just, to me, it was just unimaginable they would trade this guy.
And the insidious thing about this deal, and it just makes me sick, the fact that the Fergler, as Jeff O'Neill calls John Ferguson, that he was given a choice by Jeff Gorton, who was the interim GM of the Bruins at that point, was given the choice of who to trade, either Tuukka Rask or Justin Pogge, because Justin Pogge won gold for Team Canada at the World Juniors.
Yeah.
And he chooses Rask, probably because the backlash he would have faced by trading the gold medal winning Team Canada goaltender over some guy from Finland. And that's the state that along with the free agent signings of Jason Blake and a few others are why John Ferguson is the worst general manager in the history of the NHL.
And to this day, the Leafs, I mean, but if they get Tuukka Rask, though, they don't get Austin Matthews. It's interesting how these things play out. You know what I mean? Like they probably don't get Austin Matthews.
You can't say that because with their pitiful defense, he could have been Vesa Toskala and he'd be back in Helsinki.
Toskala's involved in one of the big ones too. If you remember that one, that's another one of mine.
But these are like, I mean, these are sort of like minor disasters as opposed to
minor disasters.
Rask is a franchise defining disaster. I have a really good one that someone just texted me, and it's Stammerman in our Stammerman in our discussion board brought up too. And this is a really good one because it's recent and you don't really think about it, but. Okay, so the Minnesota Wild acquired in 2015 seventh round pick, which turned into Jack Sedek, and a 2014 third round pick, which turned into Louis Belpedio.
Belpedio, yeah.
For who? Who did Tampa get in this trade?
I'm going to say Minnesota and Tampa.
This is between Minnesota and Tampa. A seventh round pick and a third round pick for.
I'm going to say Killorn.
Nope.
Yanni Gourde?
No, it would have been Killorn. I don't think it was
better.
Would have been Yanni Gourde either. It wouldn't have been
better.
Was it for the pick that ended up being Braden Point?
That's correct.
The Braden Point one. Yeah, that would have been.
Yeah, but it's kind of hard to do that when a draft. I mean,
it's a draft thing. I know it's hard to do.
Tough. When you get into the draft again,
I mean,
there's always that chance.
I'll give you the worst friggin' trade in Leaf history if you're going to do that one. The Leafs traded up 3 slots in the 2011 draft to take Tyler Biggs, who never made it to the NHL. They traded a lower first round pick and a second round pick. The lower first round pick turned out to be your favorite goalie, John Gibson, and Ricard Raquel.
Yeah.
So there you go.
When I see Tyler Biggs, I start thinking of Blasted Biggs. Where are you?
I keep thinking it's Jason Biggs' brother from American Pie.
The one thing about Biggs,
I have 3 trades. I don't know if you guys have covered these.
Probably have, but throw them out, Jim.
All right. So the first one is obviously, as a New Yorker, the Messier for Louis DeBrusk, Stephen Rice, and Bernie Nichols.
For that one.
Okay. I'm not sure if you covered that one.
We did that one.
2 others I had to look up, but one of them was Brett Hull for Rob Ramage and Rick Wamsley.
Yeah, that's a good one. Although Rob Ramage did become a big part of that team, helping that team win a Stanley Cup. But
and Brett Hull hadn't done anything at that point. But yes, that's
right. And the other one is Alex Stoyanov from Marcus Naslin.
Yeah, that's the top.
That's a classic.
That has to be one of
the worst trade of all time. But that's definitely the people in the chat room.
And the one I think you guys may have covered, we talked about earlier, was clearly the Tyler Seguin trade in terms of what Seguin became and what Boston got back in that trade.
So here's another one, and I this one is painful from the point of the Buffalonian, because I think it was 1983 or 84. The Sabres traded Tony McKegney, who was a very popular and pretty decent winger, J.F. Sauve, who was another role player, and Andre Savard to Quebec for a first-round pick and Real Buddy Cloutier. And Buddy Cloutier, who had 97 points with the Nordiques a couple years before, he had one decent half season with the Sabres, and then Scotty Bowman, and the rumor is that he had a little bit of a problem with, and he got sent to the AHL and then the IHL. He was sent so far away from Buffalo after one half season, and they gave away 3 really decent players for one guy. And so he had off the ice problems apparently, and you never know about those deals. But I mean,
I do want to say this, for whatever reason, in those years when GMs hated players,
yes,
they sent them to the IHL. And right. Ted Sater sent some of the best Rangers ever at the end of their careers, like Gilbert and guys like that, to the IHL, and that's why Ted Sater is hated to this day in New York.
Who was the defenseman that Glenn Sather? Oh, Gary LaRiviere, who was with Edmonton, and he hated him for some reason, and he buried him in the minor. And basically the guy had no recourse. He was under contract. He just buried him, and he never saw the light of day again.
Yeah,
I hate that stuff.
The how about this? And this is a good one. So now we're going to go into our chat room here for a second. A really good one brought up that was defining a franchise probably more than any is Bernie Parent being traded from the Maple Leafs to the Flyers.
Yes, but again, there's an explanation to that. Bernie Parent would not play with Harold Ballard.
Right.
They that trade happened twice. Favell got traded to Philadelphia for Parent, and then vice versa. Then after he had gone to, I think it was the Toronto Toros or whatever.
Yeah, I think he was with the Toros.
Right.
By the way, I have one more Ranger one that just kind of hit me.
Okay.
Yarmir Yager for Anson Carter.
Yeah.
but the whole thing, thing was, and Bernie Parent was right to not want to play for that criminal Harold Ballard. So he and the Leafs had no leverage, so they ended up getting Doug Favell back. So
two things though about the Yager thing. A lot of people were down on him at the time.
Yeah.
He had financial issues. He had his house foreclosed on him because he had financial issues. He said in the media he was a minus before he stepped out on the ice with the Capitals. So they wanted to get rid of him in the worst possible way.
No disagreement, right? It's just a matter of how it panned out. That trade ended up being a horrific trade.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so another one here. This is Esmer in the chat room. Marian Hossa and Pascal Dupuis for Colby Armstrong, Eric Christensen, and prospect that turned into Angelo Esposito.
I mean,
Marian Hossa brought us down
on that.
No, Esposito was drafted by the Penguins, and he was the throw-in in the deal, but he never panned out.
No, but the idea was on draft day, and I was there.
Yeah,
we all thought Angelo Esposito, based on I'd seen him play live in Quebec. And we all thought he was going to be a terrific NHLer. That trade was not viewed that way that day. That trade was viewed like, wow, the Penguins got Esposito too, and nobody thought that wasn't going to pan out.
And remember, Colby Armstrong had good years playing on the wing with Sidney Crosby, so his value was elevated. And Hossa was an expiring contract.
Right.
Yeah.
But Esposito was thought of as a star player.
My favorite trade of all time, the Rick Middleton for Ken Haas trade.
Okay, but you see,
I know there's a reason, right?
There is a reason.
Trade.
Yes.
And the other one of the what was it? The other trade I was thinking of was the Cam Neely.
Yeah, we did that one. That's a good one. That's epically. Someone brings up this. Esmer brought this up. Someone else brought this up too in the chat room. Which I really like, the Sergachev for Drouin. That's turning into something that could be possible.
Why are people beating on Drouin?
Because he sucks. That's why. Because
so far he's been pretty bad.
Because no. That's
I think Drouin's got talent.
50 points a year. That's bad.
That's overstated. Yeah. He doesn't suck. They traded him to be their number one center. He was never supposed to be a center.
That's not Drouin's fault.
That's Bergevin's fault.
That's really not. I mean, it's definitely not. I mean, and I don't mean it. I like it. I actually like it.
24. Hold on, but he's 24 years old.
Yeah.
and he's got 209 points in the NHL. He's had 3 years, like 21, 13, 18 goals, 53, 46, 53 points. I mean, those are not bad years.
If you were offered Drouin from Michael Sergachev right now, you'd say bye-bye.
All right, how about
That's right now.
You guys covered the Gretzky trade already also?
Let's not rip on Duran. I shouldn't have brought that one up.
I'll give you the opposite sides of the coin here. One where the Leafs got robbed, and one where the Leafs robbed.
Okay.
The one that the Leafs robbed was the I think it was 79 deal between them and Vancouver. It was Tiger Williams and Jerry Butler going to the Canucks for Rick Vive and Bill Derlago.
That's a good one.
Because Vive was like Cam Neely in the sense that he was a failed first-round pick for them, and then he scored 50 goals at least 2 times, I think maybe 3. The other one, the one that is to this day, my brother cringes when he hears of this deal. It was 78, and the Leafs traded a young Randy Carlyle, who went on to win the Norris Trophy, and the late George Ferguson to Pittsburgh for Dave Burrows. And Dave Burrows never had it. He had one good half season with the Leafs and never played good again. And Carlyle, I think Carlyle actually as a player is almost a borderline Hall of Famer defense.
I agree.
I've got one that I can't believe Anthony left off, and that's the Don Waddell special of Alexei Zhitnik for Braden Coburn.
Yeah, that's an all-timer. Again, Zhitnik, brief period with the Flyers, but yeah, it was a classic. Atlanta was trying to have that additional offensive defenseman with a reputation, and the Flyers took advantage of that. Yeah, Braden Coburn. Yeah, that was
That's
one
a
of
massive
my
trade.
mind. That's a huge one. Yeah.
What about Adam Oates for Bernie Federko and Tony McKegney?
That's a good one too. Bernie Federko is involved in the two Bernie. Well, the Bernie's Federko
Bernie Nickel. It's weekend at Bernie's
and Bernie Braun. There you go. So there's 3 Bernies for you, all involved in bad trades.
And you already covered the Gretzky trade?
Yes. I mean, I think that and again that one and the Messier trade were just like ridiculous money trades.
Yeah,
that's really what they were.
And going way back is
the worst signings of all time. The worst signings of all time. That is my blog for tomorrow, guys. So don't steal that from me. That is my. I'm going to tomorrow blog.
I'm not going to steal that.
The worst signings of all time, which is a good one, which is a really fun one too.
Jeff Finger's in there.
Jeff Goldfinger. That's right.
Yeah, no, we've seen some really classic. I mean, I'm not gonna tip off one of my hats, but one of them that we followed here forever was the friggin' Brad Richards signing, which I still think is one of the worst.
I think the one that you followed more than that was Yuri Depita, but okay.
Yuri the Funky called Depita.
Best player outside of the NHL.
Here's a preview. Billy Lano.
Yep. One of my favorite players too.
Well, I'll save you a lot of work. Just put on your blog the entire 2016 free agent class.
Chris Stratton.
Yeah, that's
all right. I say that loud.
Franz Nielsen, Erickson.
A Clarkey special.
I really appreciate everybody's having fun with this. It's a good time. We'll be back again tomorrow to talk more hockey. And thanks, Anthony and Jan. This is fun. We could just, I feel like we could talk all afternoon, and maybe someday we just will, because what the hell else are we going to do? We're trying to make ourselves, make ourselves sparse here. I'm actually going to go back on a hike with my son this afternoon. So I'm looking forward to that. Everybody, try to get outside if it's nice where you are. It's good to get outside. I know. We talked about this yesterday. Anthony, are you?
Bobrovsky.
Anthony, do you like to hike?
We do actually. Fortunate enough, we live right nearby an area where we can walk and run. So yeah,
that's awesome. I mean,
as much as I can.
I can't recommend enough this place called Peace Valley Park, which is, that
been
one.
There.
Just
Peace Valley Nature, been to Peace Valley Nature Center.
Peace Valley Nature Center. Yep. That whole area is just unbelievable. Like it's like 20 minutes outside of Philly. It's not that far. Maybe that's more. It's 20 minutes from me. But
if you're coming from the middle part of the city, it's a bit of a hike, but it's definitely doable. It's where I live in Northeast Philly. It's about 35, 40-minute ride from where
it's probably the closest you'll get from the Philly area. We have a lot of Philly people down here, but or even
anything like Love Canal.
No, it's like you get to like the Pocono feeling without going to the Poconos.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Which is like without fighting the traffic of the Poconos. It's like we went there yesterday. we're going there today to put a my son has, you know, have these trail cams, and he likes to just put up for 2 days and then see what animals we catch. Not for hunting purposes, just for tracking fun purposes. So yeah, we're gonna do that today. Put up a trail cam and see what we catch. All right, guys. So remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Enjoy your night. Oh, it's night, by the way. Rangers.